Welcome back, everybody. We are on episode 23 of the Revolutionary Social Work podcast. And this episode was with Lion Fiyah, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But this is another one of our social work outside of the status quo series and was recorded at the National NASW Conference in Chicago, which I unfortunately wasn't able to be at directly live, but Ace was there with our friend Jerome MT to record the episodes. And you were also invited on a panel, right, to talk about podcasting and revolutionary social work. I think there's a story that popped up from that.
Yeah. So like Alicia said, I was in Chicago at the NASW National Conference for a couple of reasons, doing some podcasting, but I was also a part of this panel about social media podcasting and all of this stuff. But I'm going to rewind a little bit before the panel. So I don't even know when this was, but several months before the conference in Chicago, we had saw some advertisement about some awards that the NASW had awarded out to various people. And one of the recipients of those awards, and they're pretty prestigious awards, you know what I mean, from the NASW, and one of the recipients was Ludacris, Ludacris, the rapper, the actor, rapper, Ludacris. And this is just from the press release. It said, Ludacris is honored with 2025 NASW Award for advancing the public image of social work. And they say that it stems from him playing a social worker on the Netflix film Dashing Through the Snow, where he played a social worker. They say his character exemplifies empathy, problem solving, and dedication to helping families in need. One quick note is Ludacris didn't exactly play the best social worker or the best human in that film. But either way, it was, you know what I'm saying? It's just, he was acting, he was playing a role that somebody else had written for him, right? And I let that ruminate with me for a while, Ludacris receiving this prestigious social work award. And, it didn't sit well with me. Like, it bothered me and I couldn't let go of it. And so I started thinking about Ludacris. And I'll admittedly say I haven't listened to Ludacris in a long time, at least probably well over a decade, if not more, 2 decades almost. But I was one of those people. I had Ludacris' CD, Southern Hospitality, in my truck. I remember saw him live. And the biggest part about it is most of his songs come across as anthems, like meaning you want to repeat them. And so I was one of those people up in the club repeating his lyrics. I had a little bit of an idea of what he talks about in his music. And I went back and looked a few of them up. And I'm not going to repeat them on here because I don't even want to put that energy out here. I don't think I could repeat the lyrics without sounding angry or hostile. But to make a long story short, nearly all of his lyrics are about demeaning women, using all the words and all the tropes that you can imagine in the worst ways possible. And I mean that, like the worst ways possible. I don't think you could go any lower in the way that he talks about women. Bragging about violence, senseless violence, things like that. Really, really, really negative lyrics. And as I said, they're anthems, so we're repeating them out loud. And so if you believe in the power of language and of sound, then it should be troubling, right? You're not only is one person saying these things and putting them out there, but people are listening to them, they're consuming them, whether they intend, to really like replicate the lyrics by making it by having them anthems as well. So everybody's up in the club and they're repeating them. It's almost like a declaration to the world, an affirmation of sorts. And that's not a good thing from my perspective. It's more than I can really put into language here, but that's not a good thing for people to be declaring those kind of things and to saying them out loud. Furthermore, I just don't think that the man, as the rapper, as he portrays himself, at least in public, epitomizes social work values in any way, shape, or form, especially revolutionary social work values. And I was upset anyways that they were giving him the award. So you might say, well, what the hell does this have to do with the NASW conference and all of that? So I get there to the conference and they start telling me about the panel and I start receiving more information. And then somebody, I can't remember even how I got it, but I think somebody just told me, yeah, we're going to go sit up there and they're going to make space for an award beforehand. So they're going to present somebody with an award that's not there. So it should be over quickly. And I thought to myself, I was like, good God, I really hope that they're not presenting the award to Ludacris because he's obviously not going to be there at the NASW conference while I'm on the stage. And I told myself, I'm going to speak up and I'm going to say something about it and criticize that if that happens. Lo and behold, that's who they awarded the award to, was Ludacris. Fortunately for me is that I was able to check myself on my values, value-based living and decision-making. And I realized that criticizing that in real time and using my space up there in front of everyone to be critical like I'm doing right now was not that way I wanted to use my space. And so I wanted to focus more on what I was there for and talk about revolutionary social work and the things that we're trying to build. So I didn't bring it up then, but I want to use my power and my space just to talk about it a little bit here. It really bothers me that they give him this award because I could think of so many other people that care more, that whether in the social work profession or a musician, which we'll get to in a second, there are many more, much more well-deserved people that are pushing forward the what was the name of it? The image of social work. There are much more. I could give you a list of people right now that I've interviewed, that I've talked to, that epitomize that award and should have been considered for something like that. And it speaks more to like our celebrity culture and things like that. Just because a celebrity says something or a celebrity does it, then that makes it good. But Ludacris is not a positive celebrity from my perspective anywhere. So that brings us to the episode. This is with Lion Fiyah, aka Ryan Rodriguez, and he's a reggae artist that's been around for decades here in Hawaii. And you might say, well, why are we having a reggae musician from Hawaii on a social work podcast and interviewing him at the NASW National Conference? Well, for the exact reason of Ludacris getting that award, and we want to provide a contrast to that. Long story short, we were cruising around one day not too long ago, and we heard Lion Fiyah on the radio, and it was a song called Royal Vibes.
With Innovision.
And with Innovision, and it just, the lyrics were on point. And I mean, there was positive vibes in there. There was positive advice in here. There was positive affirmations. There's like little cultural nuggets and hints of wisdom, whether it's Haile Selassie or Kanaka Meoli that he was talking about. And to me, we have to be wary of the things that we consume in life. I think I mentioned it in the podcast, but there's a song by Roots Underground called Farming. They just talk about music is like farming. Be careful of what you're consuming. If you're consuming soul food, then you're going to be healthy. If you're consuming garbage, you're not going to be healthy. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I think the same goes to music. And social work should be aware of that, which obviously, however the award went down or not, or they're not familiar, they didn't, I don't know. I don't want to criticize anybody because I don't know. I'm just saying that there are many more, even if there are plenty of social workers that deserve that award. But if we're talking about musicians that push forward the social work image, then why are we not choosing somebody whose lyrics align with social work values or revolutionary social work values? You know what I mean? And I just wanted to give a little background, a little history lesson real quick. Back in, I think it was 99, Bob Marley toured the world shortly before he died and passed away. He toured the entire world. And everywhere that he played on his tour, there is a huge reggae population and reggae emergence in every one of those areas. And obviously, and one of those is Hawaii. He played back to back in the Waikiki Shell in Oahu and Honolulu, and then he played in Maui the next night. And if you've ever been to Hawaii or spent any time there, you'd know that reggae and Bob Marley in particular are a huge part of the culture. So if you listen to, like, there's plenty of radio stations, but maybe the most popular one would be Island 98.5. If you ever listen to any of the new music that comes out, I shouldn't say it's all, but there's always homage paid to Bob Marley in those songs. And so you could see if Bob Marley was a child of the Rasta man, then all these Hawaiian reggae artists were the children of Bob Marley, if that makes sense. The grandchildren of the Rasta man, you might say. And one of the most important figures in Hawaiian reggae music is Fiji, or was Fiji. And Fiji's played an insurmountable role in our life. I mean, if you don't know who he is, it'd be hard to look up because, there's a country named Fiji as well. But Fiji's music is, the foundation, from my perspective, of modern day reggae music in Hawaii. And unfortunately, we lost Fiji just a week or so ago, a couple of weeks ago. Really devastating loss because we lost Peter Morgan as well. I don't have time to talk about it here. But I just wanted to take this time real quick to pay respect to Fiji and the positive lyrics and the positive influences that he's had here in Hawaii and on reggae music in general. If Bob Marley's the child of the Rasta man, and these reggae artists are the child of Bob Marley, the number one person would be Fiji. And so these modern day artists today are the children of Fiji, from my perspective. You see his influence everywhere. And I think one of those places that you would see that, and I think in a collaborative way with Lion Fiyah, Fiji's influence is there. You know what I mean? Where else have you seen the positive? Who else can we point to for the positive lyrics in Hawaii and beyond?
There's a lot of people. I mean, the people that come to my mind, K-Bong, our kids love K-Bong's music. Open My Eyes is one of our youngest favorite because of the lyrics, really, because of the positive, uplifting lyrics that she repeats over and over again. Mike Love, we love his music. Who else? I mean, with Fiji, Lion Fiyah, with Innovision. There's just so many. And that you're right, it's been the children of the Rastaman, of Bob Marley, of Fiji, and seeing all of these connections going through. And I think what I see in Lion Fiyah's music and in all of these other people's music is the messages of unity and of love and connection and cultural strength and resilience and indigenous resilience and healing and strength. And it's just such positivity, which is in contrast to what you were talking to at the beginning.
positivity and like elevation of the consciousness, you know what I'm saying? Like deep, meaningful lyrics. And I'll just leave it with this. That's why we invited Lion Fiyah on the podcast. And it almost makes me emotional to think about it or to talk about this. But I'm very happy to say that my kids aren't repeating Ludacris's anthems when we're riding around in the car. Instead, they're repeating people like Lion Fiyah. My kids know all the lyrics to Royal Vibes. And so, what a relief that is to think about, and think about what a contrast, between the two sets of lyrics. And so I just want to close with this little part by saying that as social workers, as the NASW, we should have a higher responsibility to uphold the values of social work or revolutionary social work if social work hasn't defined them in general. And if we're going to give an award out to a musician for, pushing forward social work, then it ought to be somebody whose lyrics reflect that. So our revolutionary social work award to music, if we had one, we would give it to Ryan Rodriguez, aka Lion Fiyah.
And just a little bit more about Lion Fiyah. As Ace said, he's a Grammy-nominated artist in Hawaii, reggae artist, singer, songwriter, well-respected OG in the islands. If you've, like Ace mentioned, 98.5, you've ever listened to that, you probably heard Feel Like a Kid Again, which is one of our favorites when we first met. But also Love Love is one of my favorites with J-Bug, and then one of his most recent ones, which is Royal Vibes with Innovision. And I speak about the lyrics in this episode a little bit, and it's just what really caught my eyes, those revolutionary social work values portrayed in that music, in his lyrics, when he's saying, like, check on yourself, look inwards. So, yeah. Lion Fiyah.
In the episode, we talk about all kinds of things, intersections of Rastafari and Hawaiian reggae music and all of that. We go deep. And I just want to close it out before we get into the actual episode and just say much respect to all the artists out there that are putting out positive lyrics, that are putting out the lyrics that elevate our consciousness and make us better human beings, if you know what I'm saying. Much respect to you. I appreciate you. And I appreciate for what you put in to my consciousness, my family's consciousness, my kids. It's a blessing to hear my kids repeating your lyrics, and especially to Lion Fiyah for his lyrics and for taking the time out of his busy schedule to speak with us. Hope you enjoyed as much as I did.
Peace.
Hey, listen, we got some things that we gotta discuss, how we can affect the system and make it better for us. But first, we gotta start with the man in the mirror. Open your third eye and the vision's gonna be much clearer. We are revolutionary. We are visionary. Yeah. And we stand resolute, but those who pollute the minds of many. Revolutionary, yeah. We are visionary. Yep. And we stand resolute, but those who pollute the minds of many. Yeah. This is the Revolutionary Social Work Podcast, yo.
Thanks for joining us, bro. This is I'm Ace. This is my brother and friend MT.
What's going on, Lion? How you doing, brother? Aloha, bro.
Welcome to another episode of the Revolutionary Social Work Podcast. We're here live in Chicago at the NASW Conference. And I'm very happy to be joined by Ryan Rodriguez, a.k.a. Lion Fiyah. And if you've ever been cruising around Honolulu or somewhere in Hawaii listening to Island 98.5, you surely heard some of his music. How you doing today, bro? Where are you at in the islands right now?
I live out in Ka'ava. So that's the northeastern side around Kualoa.
The reason that we wanted to invite you on the podcast is mostly because me and my family been jamming out to one of your most recent songs, the Royal Vibes. In my family, we take lyrics very seriously. You know what I mean? We feel like if you plant good seed, then you're going to reap good rewards. And I feel like music is like that. And so I just wanted to say much respect to you for the music that you put out and putting out conscious lyrics and, not just some BS like, many other musicians do. So big.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, my family wanted to ask you some questions first, and they couldn't be here. But if it's all right with you, I'm just going to play their questions for you, if that's cool.
Absolutely.
And this first one is from Alicia.
Fiyah, I really like your song, Will Vibe. I had a question for you about your song. How did you come up with the beat? It's a really cool beat. Hope you answer my question. Bye. See you sometime.
You're so sweet. So, the way I create music, I do it in several different ways. Sometimes I start from the ground up, which would be I would sit on an instrument, mostly the piano. That's if I'm creating it from the beat up. But nowadays, I've been working with a lot of producers, so they will actually have a rhythm or a beat already made, and they'll introduce it to me, and then if I catch a vibe, then I catch a vibe. Sometimes I'll sit on beats for a long time, and then some inspiration will come, and then the lyrics will come, melody will come, and boom, I'm writing something. I think with that particular track, I think she's referring to Hawaiian Air, the song called Hawaiian Air. The rhythm was on the Real Life Rhythm. I believe that was by Mighty Crown. They're from Japan. A big sound system, big production crew from Japan. But yeah, I mean, I was stoked to do that collaboration with that, That's how that one came about. So when I heard that rhythm, I kind of knew what I wanted to do. And by request of the producer, Sammy T from Mighty Crown, he wanted to get a song out of me that was kind of like taking a ride around the island. That's what that song is about, just kind of taking a coastal drive over our island and checking the sights and meeting the people. And of course, you always want to, for me at least, like I'd like people to catch the real vibe, the real sentiment of this place, of any place. I've been a stranger in many strange lands. I've toured all over, and I've always appreciated learning about the places that I'm in, and the hospitality. So in that song, without saying it, I'm saying, or I'm displaying a way that our visitors can be better visitors. It looks like we're having a little reconnection issue.
It just popped back on. Yeah, I appreciate you. I have a follow-up question to that too. I think it's one of the cool things about reggae with the rhythms that go around and you hear, the beat and you hear some different versions of songs about it. But what about, the many collaborations like on the recent one with Innovision? How do those usually come about? You got one person that has the idea and reaches out, or, how do those collaborations usually come about?
So that one, he reached out to me. That rhythm was made by a producer and artist, Hoku Aki, and Koa from Innovision. He wrote a hook, the Royal Vibes hook, and he had 2 verses done already. So he just sent it to me and said, "Well, what do you think about this?" I don't know. I caught the vibe and I already knew exactly what to do with it. Sometimes it's like that. If someone sends me a beat or something that they're working on, I want to collaborate. If it's immediate, like there's this immediate chemistry, like once I hear it, like the feeling is, oh, this is special. This is gonna be, this is gonna be good. And when I say good, I don't really mean in like monetarily or anything like that. I mean that something powerful and something moving is going to come out of it. Ultimately, that's always been my goal, is to create music that's somewhat timeless. Like 10 years down the line, if you hear that song, you wouldn't know if it came out yesterday or not. That's the joy of reggae music, and that's the joy of writing conscious lyrics. The world will always be in need of that. The world will always be in need of message, especially nowadays. And that was I
Yeah,
was blessed
absolutely. Well,
to
thank
get
you for
that
that.
collaboration from Brother Koa. He hit me up, and the one thing I did hear that I really wanted to change was our verse 2, because he was doing verse 1 and verse 2, and I was like, I don't want it to feel like I'm just jumping on for a verse. I really want it to feel like a vibe, like we're in a dance. We're in the dance hall and we're passing the microphone between us. I want that vibe, that fun, that unity vibe. And I think we did that. I say, if you mind me singing a couple lines of your lyrics on verse 2, it will kind of give it that vibe, like we're passing the mic around. So it's little things like that, and the trust of the artist that's asking me to collaborate with, that really gives breath to these kinds of songs and these kinds of projects. Because some guys, they call me with just a certain intent, like, Lion, we want this type of Lion Fiyah. We don't want a singy one. We want someone with just fire. Like, we want you screaming on this track. And we want you from this verse, and we want you for this many lines. And then there's other people is like, here's a beat, tell me what you think. Or here's a little hook, tell me what you think. You want to collaborate. So most of my collaborations are not with other artists, but with other producers. So they'll give me a rhythm and then I'll voice it up. But recently, I've been catching the bug to collaborate with other artists. I really believe in the power of collaboration.
Yeah.
I
Well,
really do.
Well, what you did within the vision with that song, it was just something powerful. I remember I heard it in the car. It was playing on the radio on Molokai, and I was like, I never heard this before, and I had to go look up the lyrics and everything. But my wife's gonna ask you a question about lyrics and on the lyrics on that song in a minute. So I'm gonna
Cool.
go to this one from Naya.
Hi, Lion Fire. I like your song, Royal Vibes. How'd you get your name?
My name Lion. Okay, cool. That's a cool one. So it's like I got Lion from my mother. You know, I was always singing around the house, like ever since I was little. I played piano from 10 years old and before that, just banging away on things and making music. So I've always had the music bug, but I always used to sing Bob Marley songs. So I caught the name Lion from real young. My name being Ryan, my grandfather would nickname me Ryan O. So Lion just kind of came up. Um, and Fire came across at the age of, I would say, 13. So Lion Fire became something at the age of 13. I started to check for the Rastafarian faith. I first came into the first Rastafarian organization I came into was the 12 Tribes of Israel. That one, the branch that I was affiliated with was from Aotearoa, from New Zealand. So I was kind of brought in by um, a Maori brethren, and that's where I got my first Bible at that age from the 12 tribes of Israel. So I give thanks to that. Shout out to the 12 tribes of Israel and Aotearoa for that culturing. But that elder that gave me that Bible, I really am grateful for the time he spent, in reasoning scripture with me and how a Rastafari faith and movement brings that scripture to life in our time, into our modern times. And how does it apply to us? Um, as a Hawaiian, genealogy is important. And anybody who reads scripture, genealogy is important. The scripture, they'll talk about the whole bloodline of Christ and whatnot. So Rastafari was something that recognizes the power of genealogy and the genealogy of Haile Selassie being that going all the way back to King Solomon and him being kin with Christ. I saw so much revelation in it, and it just made sense for me. So the reasonings I would have with this elder, um, he just said, "Man, Lion, you come with fire, man, a fire lion," and that's just where it came from. So I was blessed with the names. It wasn't like a something I chose for WWF or anything.
It just popped you back on.
Sorry.
No, not your fault. It's internet at the conference's fault. But one of the things that I appreciate about you too is that you're giving the shout out to Haile Selassie. Lots of people know like who Mussolini is that invaded Ethiopia back in the day, but only select people know about Haile Selassie or his speech at the League of Nations. Some people may know it through Bob Marley's song or whatnot. But Rastafarians believe in the power of sound, right? They don't understand, they overstand. And so
Yes, word sound power.
what do you think about that, about the power of lyrics and the power of sound and the responsibility of a musician and what they're putting out into the public and the public consciousness and all that?
Yes, definitely. Like, I know that anytime or if there's a song that I've created and put out that I'm not proud of, it's because I had stepped out of my character, which is in alignment as a Rastaman, and in my alignment as a Pono Hawaiian.
Yeah.
Anytime I've created anything that's outside of that space, I gotta pity myself, and I'm not proud of them songs, but it is what it is. Like, at the same time, that's something that I had to go through. It's like growing up in public. What I mean, been doing music for so long, and I've been doing conscious music from a real young age since my teens, that by the time I hit my 30s, I'm like, you know what? I never explored doing this type of music. I want to see what that could do for me, especially when you have all kinds of voices around you, all kinds of people who've watched you grow, and they say, have you tried this? Have you tried that? So I tried exploring different types of music, not outside of the realm of like Caribbean music or like reggae music. I've done dancehall, Afro pop. But as far as like songs that aren't so heavy on message, it's more about having a good time. Those aren't really songs that I perform. It's studio cuts and I can number them on my hand, you know. And those aren't songs that I particularly am proud of as far as like looking back on legacy. But at the time, I'm like, hell yeah, that was dope. You know, it was a dope song. Like, I still put my stamp on it. It still has quality. But now that I'm older, that I'm 40 years old now, I really look at not not the longevity of Lion Fiyah in the game, but what I'm leaving behind. And there's only so much time. I only have so much time left to create and complete my mission. And I believe everyone has a mission inborn in you. You know, if you know yourself, you will know your mission. And I know my mission. Definitely not proud of those couple songs that I did that were outside of my mission. But I know it made some people happy. There's still stuff in a bop too. You know what I mean? But my whole focus nowadays is definitely going towards stuff that that I'll always be proud of. Something that my children will be proud of and that you can play for anybody from the baby to the old kupuna. So I think like, you know, that's an important space to be in. And I would hope that, you know, a lot of other artists would be catch that fever nowadays because that's what our world needs. We have so much going on right now, so much tug of wars of ideology, so much wars going on, and not enough people are injecting goodness. You know, there's so much fighting. People are out there being mean just to be mean. Like I'm talking about online, you know, people are just out there being mean just to be mean. Like, when was the world ever like that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't recall being mean just to be mean when I was little. But now I can see like, you know, it's almost like hot culture
Yeah. And I
to misbehave.
Yeah, yeah. I really appreciate you because, for example, how music like yours, and I mean, you know, going all the way back to Bob Marley, but when my kids are singing a song or, you know, singing an anthem, the words that are coming out of their mouth is extremely positive, and I know it affects the way that they think and the way that they feel and their behavior. So, you know, much
Yes.
thank you to you for, you know, for considering those kind of things, you know, putting music out like that. Here's my son. He has a question for you, and then my wife has one about the lyrics of Royal Vibes.
Cool.
Hi, Lion Fire. I always jam to your songs. What does the line in Royal Vibes mean?
Yes, I so I mean, you know, that line, the hook was written by Core from Innovision. So I'm gonna try and answer for myself and try and touch on where his philosophy was, you know, when he was writing it. Uh, so when we had a reasoning about the song and we wanted to talk about how would you introduce someone who doesn't know reggae music to reggae music? And I was saying like, well, I feel like the dance hall or the dance is such an experience, you know, when you come to a dance and there's big sound and you're amongst people and we're listening to reggae, like that's when I experienced that for my first time as a youngin, like that what made me catch the reggae fever, you know, that that unity vibe, people being united under good music with good message, and this is conscious folk, you know, and Royal Vibes is that. It's showing that yo, there's all kinds of people that can be coming to the dance. There's all kinds of people that are being coming to your life. And not everybody is gonna be royal. You know, you're gonna have all kind of funny man, you know what I'm saying? You're gonna have all kinds of people who want you for what kinds of intentions and whatnot, people who use and abuse you. And, you know, it's reflective of life. You know, we're talking about the dance, but we're really talking about life and the choice to be royal within that. You know, you could go to the dance and be, get drunk off your butt and act a fool, but that's not what the reggae scene is. It's not like you don't go to the reggae concert and start fights. You just don't do that. And if we're seeing that, that's because it's losing its culture and the music is changing. The acts are changing.
Yeah.
The lineup is changing. And that's why you might see the change up in the crowd and the energy of the people, because it's lacking the message. So Royal Vibes is that. We were addressing that. It's saying that how come a lot of these different types of groups are getting booked? These groups that every single song is about folly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Even the names of their groups, I don't even want to big it up right now by saying the names, but it sounds ugly, and it represents something ugly. That's the type of vibes it's going to attract. When they're putting that out, the word sound power is going out, then that's what energy is boomeranging back. That's the type of following they're going to get. That's the kind of people are going to come to the shows. Those are the type of people who are going to start fights. I've seen it happen. I've seen it all happen. I've been doing music for a while, and I've seen the waves and the changes and how we went from holding lighters up to holding cell phones up to just being in behind the screen. It's not even like this. People aren't even doing that. They're doing this. They're looking through the screen.
Yeah.
It's like it's filtering the show for them. There's so many disconnections. There's so many disconnections. And Royal Vibes is a call out, all you Royal ones, because it's like who feels it knows it. And I see how you're like, yeah, because you know it. The man has a crown, on your head. And that's who we're shouting out to. Let the kings and queens come to the dance, Let our vibe shine. And that's the power of reggae music. And as far as my verse, I looked at the structure of the song and what Ko had written and what was there and what I wanted to write. And I said, I feel like the song needs a focal point. If we're talking about Royal Vibes, then I want to represent as a king and let my career be the focal point. And this is how I dealt with reggae music. And then I chose to go the positive way. And I chose the Rastafari route, I call it Rasta University, and reggae was my major. And that's what that verse is about.
That's what's up. Here, let's add to that, because my wife Alicia, she got a question about the lyrics.
Okay.
Alicia calling in from Big Island. Wish I could be on the podcast with you guys today, but maybe next time. I want to share appreciation, gratitude for the music you share with the world. We love listening to it as a family. We've been jamming out to Royal Vibes a lot lately. I really love the lyrics where you say, look in the mirror, check on yourself. Are you satisfied with your health? Ego is a real killer, a vibe killer, and is wealth you're looking for. I beg you reconsider. Obviously didn't say it as well as you did, but I love this message. And I think that we need more of this. Obviously, we don't have a lot of it in the music industry. We need youth to be hearing this message. We're trying to share this message with revolutionary social work, wanting people to check on themselves so that they can be there for other people, for their community. My question is, two questions. Within the music industry, how do you stay true to your values and keep this positive messaging going when it's not always celebrated within the mainstream music world? But also, what advice do you have for our youth in how they can check on themselves and how they can stay grounded in this crazy world and take care of their health? Because I think it's really hard to do when we have all of the just negativity around us. So thank you.
Reflection, reflection, being honest with yourself, prayer, taking time in nature. All of these things will keep you grounded and don't isolate. I mean, we all need alone time, truly, because when you're alone time, you connect with your creator. That's when God sits in your crown, and that's when you converse with the inner eye. People forget there's a separation of self and I, and you hear it when individuals would say stuff like, damn, I can't live with myself. I'm going to kill myself. Now, who's talking there? Is that the self, or is that? It's because it sounds like there's, you're almost addressing two different people in your own mind. I can't live with myself. You're not saying I can't live with I can't live with myself. I can't, So obviously there's a character, there's a straw man, there's something there. And, you know, I think when I think when you recognize that character, it's easier to help malama, to help take care of that person and take care of the separation. Who's the I? The I is the I am that I am. That is the God, that is a sovereign in you. That sovereign recognizing that there's something wrong in your temple. The self is not in alignment with the I. So for me, it would be taking time to be holy. That is what my Rastafari elders from the Bobo Shanti order had taught me. So I had spent time training for a priesthood. It's 7 years. And the things that I've learned from those elders is that, that we cannot get caught up in too much of what's the left and the right. That's what they would say. Don't look to the left or the right. And I don't think they were being political either. I think that's a biblical saying. Don't look to the left or the right, meaning just don't be indifferent. Know yourself, know your mission, and forward that. For our kids, I do feel for them because man, they weren't born in a world without internet, and they were born in a world watching their parents scrolling on there. So who are we to tell them too much? So we have to regulate ourselves first before we can even tell our kids what to do. But definitely, yeah. I mean, with our kids, watch out with that scrolling. Watch out with the scrolling because that's something that's new. We don't have all of these years-long studies of what's happening to them. What's the psychological effect, My other half, she's a psychologist. She's a doctor, and that's something that she's kind of been looking into. That's been her study right now, the effects of that social media, and internet and device use on the kids and the parenting in the family. How do we parent that? Because we don't know. We weren't given the book on how do we deal with this, because it's never been there. I do notice, yeah, with our children, they have more self-worth issues and self-confidence issues that I think if we look back, you can kind of say, oh, maybe my siblings, like my sisters used to read 17 magazine and look at the girls in the bikinis and be like, oh, I wish I was that. But now our daughters are having it compounded day in, day out, not just on the phone, but if they watch Netflix, they watch this, they watch that. It's so much. It's so much imagery. So I think we as parents, we need to endeavor to make sure we get our kids outside, whatever it is, wherever you are, please get into nature. Please find a place of quiet, I knew what the back of my hands looked like very intimately as a child. I knew what my feet looked like intimately as a child because we didn't have devices. We had so much time sitting there bored. And I think that's good for the mind. That's time for the mind to process. It's time for the mind to deal with not being stimulated, not being dopamine hit over and over and over. So grounding is, in my opinion, it's going to be a much more harder endeavor for our children just because they weren't given that. They have no recollection of being grounded. They've been taken up into the internet world. Point it to me. Where's the internet? Can't find it. It doesn't exist. Not physically, at least, but, so in this long rant that I'm going about reflection, and the only time you can have reflection is when you're still. Think of the water. When the water is still and it's not moving, that's the most reflection you're going to get when you look at the still water. It's the same thing. We need to be still. And, me as a man of God, as a man of Jah, be still and know I'm God. That is my way of connecting to myself, my I, and my creator, and all around me. It's funny. In the stillness and in the quiet is the most connected you'll ever be with everyone. With everyone.
Yeah, I really appreciate that you emphasize connection because that's what it does. All the scrolling, all the other stuff. We're connected virtually to all these things, but we're disconnected from ourselves. We're disconnected from God. We're
Yes.
disconnected from nature. And so I think that's the key is reconnection. Hey, we're about to go see Stephen Marley down the road here in Chicago. And one thing about his shows, he just sits there and plays music, but he has a lot of symbology everywhere. And I noticed some symbology, in some of your music videos and stuff. And I think we don't notice the negative symbology sometimes that's in the music, the TV, the movies that we see. What do you think is the importance of symbology, especially when it comes to Rastafari and reggae music?
Symbols are important. I think they're languages. Symbol is language. Like the alphabet is symbols, right? Every single letter is actually a symbol, and it has a root meaning. To me, the symbols is important. Unfortunately, the meanings of symbols do get contorted over time. We've seen that, like with, for example, the swastika, how that it's like a powerful symbol of peace and continuity and infinity was hijacked. It was flipped, but yeah, also the meaning was flipped. Yeah, so we see you know the rise and downfall of symbols. Especially right now we got with the war in the Middle East. The genocide, the Israeli flag dons the Star of David, which for Rastafarians, the Star of David represents His Majesty Haile Selassie, represents his dynasty, represents Solomon, but it's been hijacked. The symbol's been hijacked and put on a flag that represents something else. Um, Symbols have power, and some people probably are more into it than others. And when I say power, I say, I guess, not just subliminal, but there's the esoteric power in some symbols. In my study, I was once so interested in sigils, angel sigils and archangel sigils. I thought that was very interesting and where these symbols all came about. So yeah, I guess that's something that's always been in me, and I think they're important. If they've been around in antiquity and they were important to our elders, then we've ought to continue using them.
Yeah, it made me think in my old studio, my wife made me a sign that said "Welcome to Zion," and then that started to be a little bit misinterpreted in recent
See what I
times. You know
mean?
what I mean?
Yes, and it's like it's hard, brethren, because the elders also teach us, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and we can't let a certain fringe group destroy the hard work and the good works of those that came before us. And that's the danger of it. That's why we have to stand up. That's why I have to say no. That's why we have to come forward and not be complicit. We have to. We have to. Otherwise, who are we to complain in the end?
Lion, I have really enjoyed listening to you talk about your integrity, as a man that comes from like that African spiritual mindset and, that communal mindset, and having spent 20 years in Hawaii, you hear a
Same.
lot of the talk. You know what I mean? You hear a lot of people that they know the coin phrasing and they try to bring it out, but it's not consistent in their conversation. Like when you talk to them for an hour or so, the consistency of what their values are isn't apparent. But me and Ace, before we got on, he's like, man, I really enjoy this guy. His lyrics, they're so conscious. You could tell like he's mindful about that process. And, he knows me. He's like, man, he's like real Rasta, and I'm like, yeah, I really love that because I've just been sitting here listening. And as a man, it's comforting to hear another man just talk about his integrity and maintaining that consistency and the why behind it. That the legacy is important, but also the legacy of truth, the legacy of power, the legacy of, the things that our ancestors and elders have overcome so that they could give us these phrasings, so that they can give us this overstanding. And I also loved how many times you mentioned you being in session of reasoning with your elders, confirming with your elders, having other people there, and not being in isolation, but having a communal affirmation of what you're doing. Because you're maintaining integrity. And it's easy to do that when you're in your integrity. It's easy to go to your elders and say, hey, I've been doing what you told me to do. Did I do it? You know, I've been holding on to this truth. Am I speaking it right? And I really wanted to just like, one, applaud you, you know, give you some flowers for that. Just like, as a man, 40 years old, I think integrity is the most important thing a man can have. And I've just enjoyed it. But also, thank you, bro. Thank you for, as an artist and being in the media sector, making those lyrics and making your legacy of language so important to you, because it's important to you, is powerful for us. You know, like my brother spent all morning telling me about the power of your lyrics and in the way that it affects my godson. You know, he was just on the phone asking you about some of your lyrics. Like, my godson is empowered by your lyrics. And those are the things that we both want him to, like, if he's going to be singing anything, let him sing about things that are full of integrity, things that are about, you know, being conscious and mindful and present with his kindness, with his love, and also the wisdom. You know, a lot of the things you're talking about is wisdom being passed down, and you as a student and also as a child of that wisdom, sharing it openly and not being scared or abashed or fearful to project that wisdom into the world. And I really wanted to just say, I appreciate it, man. I've appreciated just getting the bits and pieces that I've been able to listen to so far. So thank you, man, as an artist. And I've heard your music, and now I know it's your face, bro. I'm about to go get some more. So I appreciate the conversation so far.
Man, that was so many nice things, and it's, you know what I mean. You said so many nice things. Wow, thank you. I really appreciate that. That was a lot. Thank you, thank you. It is important. I said reflection. You know, is very important, and I think that's the only way that I was able to stay true, is as you constantly reflect. And I thought that was, just a what do you call? I thought that was like a handicap for me, was to always be stuck in my mind as a kid. But I think in the long run, I look at it like it was good, because it kept me in check. I kept myself in check, and I saw what was more important, and legacy is important. And without that reflection, I wouldn't have known that. I probably would have been carried away like a lot of my other friends, whatever the hell they all got carried away in. You know, our music community is very tight. Everyone knows each other. We all played with each other, and we've seen everyone come and go the way they did, and you see people make their money decisions, and they're doing very well, and but which is great. Who doesn't want to make a lot of money and go buy their mama house? Who doesn't want to do that? We all want to do that. But at what state? We only have one shot at this life, and we have only one window in time to let our work stand and shine while we're here. No one's gonna write Lion Fiyah songs once Lion Fiyah walks with the ancestors. You know that my time will be up. So I'm trying to make it all last now. Try to put my works down now. And as a Hawaiian, our culture only survived because of oral tradition. We have an oral tradition. So if my tradition that I'm gonna pass down is full of blasphemy and full of whoremongering and whatnot, then that's a waste of time. That's a waste of my whisper in time. Because that's all we got is a whisper in time. Like, in scale to the universe and creation, shit, we're a blip, we're a blink. So I want my blink to be a really nice strong one that's filled with purpose, and the gaze of God. I just want that for people. Let people feel God through this music. Because when I write, I pray to God. I ask God, what do you need of me? What do your people need? And some days nothing comes true, and some days he turns the faucet on and just boom, it just starts boom, 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 like, and it's done. It's butter. So I know that for me, the things that I do to stay grounded and to stay there, there's quite a lot. I take prayer very seriously. I'm in prayer at least an hour a day. Before it was a lot more. I do honor my Sabbath days, but I'm not the type to I'm not forcing my religion on anyone. I don't make it a spectacle for my family. I don't make, I'm not like that. This is my temple. And I just got to make sure my tempo is good, you know, because my tempo puts out messages. So that's why I got to stay conscious and stay true. And I try my best. I'm going through the same world that we're all going through.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm not the only one. That's such a, that's a comfort to me, that I know that there's other people who feel the same way and are doing the same thing. As Rasta, we believe ourselves to be blood and fire angels. We believe we're angels, and we're in this flesh, and we got work to do. We got works to do. And as a Ras, we always feel this urgency because we have our king with us. Our king is always going to be with us. Haile Selassie is with us. I know the Christian man feels the same way, like that Jesus is with you. We feel the same way. Christ is the same person to me. I feel that too. So that's why I say I put God in my lyrics. I'm not necessarily saying God or saying Haile Selassie's name and everything, but his teaching is there, his moral is there, his peace should be there. And that's what I want to inject into my music, and let the people receive it how they receive it. If the masses are looking for some cover song, country stuff, they won't find it with me. But if you're looking for a little peace or a little bit of fire, you're gonna get it here. And that's my mission. I'm sticking to it.
Well, I appreciate you because that's what I'm looking for.
But I give thanks, man. I'm so thankful that there's an ear that will listen. If there's ears to listen, I'll keep singing. Because I'm a person that I believe, like what the Lord said and God said, even the rock shall praise my name. So, what I mean? A lot of the things that we deal with and the vanities that we push forward is all illusion, because in the end of ends and of all, even the rock shall praise his name, you know? So let's just be good about it, Let's leave goodness for our children. Let's leave goodness for the next generation. Man, look at Bob Marley. It's like he's still alive. The man's still alive.
Yes.
For a lot of folks. And yeah, and definitely for a lot of the next generation. Like I've noticed, like I'll sing a Bob Marley song at a show. Sometimes the vibes is not always there, and it's not as intense anymore. The kids don't all know the songs anymore. But then every now and then you'll play a show where, damn, all the kids know the tunes. All the kids are singing the Bob songs. So, yeah, man, the music still live as long as it has this good soul, like the word of God live. And if we put the word of God in our music shall live.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so powerful.
Because, it's like that tune I just wrote, or I just put out, Defeat the Devil. It came out the same way. I asked God, what do we need? And that was what I saw, was just pure devilry on, just, I haven't seen division like this. Like family members, like, I can't even hold a conversation anymore, because once it goes this way, once you start talking about Trump, once you start talking about Gaza, once you start, then everyone starts fighting, and it's crazy. When was that? When did that ever be? When was that ever a thing where I cannot sit down with my mother and my father and have a conversation without everything getting hot? That's to me is the devil. Division, chaos, lies, manipulation, greed, wrath, vengeance. All those things come with the devil, and that's the MO, that's his trail of breadcrumbs. And I've been seeing his crumbs all over the place, manifesting in different ways. And the scariest thing to me is the division between, mother against father and father against son. We're seeing it in real time. I find it really hard when you're raised by
Lion,
people.
and I hope
My
like
parents
you can
raised me
hear
with
me when
morals,
I
and
ask
I'm not
this,
bagging
but
on my parents. I'm
as you
using
were
it as an
talking
example for other
earlier,
people who are going through the same
mentioned
thing.
a time period where
If we may not align
you were
politically,
learning and maturing and selecting what songs you do and how you engage with the music and the things that you wanted to do. And you're like, there was times where I felt like I was wonky, my foot was faltering in my step, or I didn't do it with the same intention. For me, that
yeah,
works with a lot of men. having the grace to allow yourself to explore, to go out of your comfort zone, to try to put your step in a place that you've never stepped before. How did you navigate that? You know, like as an artist, like you said, you grew up in public. So it wasn't like you got to do that step in a place where it wouldn't publicly serve someone or serve someone else or even serve you in an inappropriate way or in a way that you didn't want. How did you give yourself that grace? And I know you mentioned like being grounded, but also how did you muster the courage to try something new? Because you had a nice formula already, right? Like you knew what to say, what to do it within what time pattern within this music. What gave you the courage and then also the grace to go on that journey for yourself while you were maturing in public? I think that was really interesting.
I was going through a whole overhaul of my whole life, and um I got into like Dr. Sabi, like dialing in my nutrition, working out, and I was really just in that mind space of just, this is a time to reinvent. And this was all during the COVID lockdown. So I thought it was a great time to try and do something new. I think it just kind of organically happened, I guess, as I physically started to change, the attention started to change. Primarily, my fan base has always been male, and around the the ages of like 12 years old all the way up. But it's always been mostly male, kind of like 60 something percent to 30 something percent female.
Amazing.
Once my look started to change, and then just posting pictures on social media, I started to see my following started to change. It started to become more female. And during the time, Afrobeat was something that was getting super popular, and I always loved it. I always loved dancehall music, although I wasn't always like writing them pum pum songs. You know what I mean? I always thought they were jiggy. Like I'd be in the dance with everybody else, and like, you know what I mean? So that's the culture. So I thought, hey man, let's just try it. I didn't write up any kind of a viral following within the young crowd. Also in South America, like it was huge. I think overnight, maybe 3,000 followers, all looking like J-Lo. It was a thing. So, but it wasn't me. Like it was just something I could do. Like as an artist, yeah, it's in my ability. That's where I was at. I wanted to stretch the envelope of my abilities and see, let me create this. Let me see if I can do it. And let's see what happens. It was a reinvent. But after I did it, I got this huge online response. But once I take it to the stage, I wasn't comfortable doing it at all. At all. Like 0%. I just don't, and I still don't want to do it. Like if they want it, like if the client or whoever hired me wants the tune, I'll play the intro and sing the first line and then pull up, and that's it. That's it. Because I have to be true to myself. I don't ever want to stand up there and feel like, what the fuck? What am I doing? You know what I'm saying? What am I doing? Why am I here? Because that, like I said, reflection, and the whole reason to reflect is to be honest with yourself and to keep the whole not the whole point of reflecting, but the process of reflecting is to be honest. That's what reflection demands. You got to be honest with yourself. And honestly, did I want to be this age singing those kind of songs? No. So I don't do it. I won't do it.
I love that authenticity, bro. Like the ability to authentically express yourself in the exploration of a new thing, but then also to reflect on it and then be authentic and like, yep, I did it. I put all my energy in it. It was dope, but it's not what I want. Like, that's one of the things I love about like one of my ancestors I revere, Malcolm X, was like, he was so
Wow.
strong in his thinking. But
I
then
love
once he had a
Malcolm X.
renewing of his mind, he
Yes.
was just as strong in that
He did
thinking.
it.
Yeah,
Yes, he's
I
a
loved it.
shining example for all of us. That, like, he was real.
Yeah.
He was real. He wasn't a cog. Because a cog would just follow their ideals, their fundamental, and not see what God is putting in front of your eyes.
Yeah.
God put something in front of his eyes at the Hajj, and
Yeah.
that transformed him. Even through all the things he experienced in America, that was it.
Yeah.
He was exposed to the world. He saw the world in one event. It was amazing. And that man, the microphone that he is, he changed many. And I see that kind of work within what we do as musicians. We have the microphone. We literally are writing speeches when we write songs.
Yeah.
So we ought to endeavor to leave something of worth behind.
And that's really a legacy of like reggae music. Like now I think in modern times it's changed, right? But from my education and relationship to it, like I didn't think it was reggae unless you spoke about three things. Like you only had three things you could talk about. And it was like God, your mama, and your wife. Like that was it. And then it all had to be love, So like I think that legacy of a clear message rooted in values, I think is really enriching seeing the changes that we're having in that environment for you to be standing up and also to articulate, like as an artist, we go through this reasoning within ourselves on what our values are, how we're projecting it. And for you to share it so openly, I don't know about the rest of the people. I was really encouraged to hear that you started with a fan base of 60% men, because I think so many men need to hear that. Like, I think that's powerful for me. I'm a spiritual man as well. And you need to know that you can take a step out, that you can explore, that you can try, that you can evaluate it to not be exactly what you want, and it not diminish your integrity, it not diminish your legacy, but that it's a part of the transformative and evolutionary process of that masculine principle of sustainability, of strength, of growth. And so I really appreciate you expressing that, but also maintaining that legacy and reminding us like, yeah, our artists do have a powerful responsibility to speak life into the world around us. So, man, thank you for sharing that journey and that process, man. That's like, it's really encouraging for all of us, man. So peace, man. Respect for real.
All right, thanks.
A couple as a question and a comment in the chat that I want to get to real quick. Mel asks, and you kind of already touched on this a little bit, but Mel asks, how does your heritage influence your music and your message?
My heritage, I love this one. Especially like nowadays, when people talk about misappropriation and whatnot, yeah. For myself, I've never encountered any I've never encountered any kind of, as far as like, that's some Javacan stuff. And, because I believe, and from what I was told by other, artists that I've looked up to, Jamaican artists that I looked up to, that my stuff is authentic. And being authentic is the key. So you can change your religion. You can change your political views, what part. You can change your job. You can change your church. You can change your God. You cannot change what blood you got. You cannot change where you came from, what begat you. You can't change that. That is what you came with. So especially right now, I've been digging super deep into my Hawaiian heritage, and I don't mean, culture, because I got a lot of that, and I always will be learning new things. But recently, getting super deep into my genealogy, and I think I've always had a feeling of who I was and where I came from, but it wasn't until I did my genealogy. Now I know exactly where I came from and who it was and what they did. So I know my bloodlines. I know my royal bloodlines, and I'm very fortunate that the connections the connection that I made, I can now further that and study. I can study their lives and what they did, because they were all royal and high chiefs from all the from Maui and the Big Island and the royal house of Alapai Nui. I come from the lineage of Umialiloa. So I'm lucky because I know who my ancestors are. I can really learn about who I am, not just as a Hawaiian, but who I am. Um, from my understanding of culture and the exchange of it, and the appreciation or appropriation of culture, I look at it this way. Say if I was gonna learn karate, which comes from the Japanese, that's their culture. I would come at it with complete honor, with respect, with humility, humbleness, and I would learn and I would listen to sensei and I would learn the words. I'll do the bows and I would get my black belt and I would be at the highest degree. Because if I'm going to endeavor to learn something, I will come with respect and mana and fire and do it with authenticity, so that those who are imparting that knowledge to me or that culture to me, I say, yep, he learned in my house. So when it comes to reggae, I did the same thing. I came with that intensity to learn. I'm gonna study this stuff. I want to study patois. I want to study Jamaican culture. I studied Rastafari culture, and then until I realized I was a Rasta man.
Yeah.
And I locked up my hair, and I was locked up and bearded for years, and I've endeavored to train in the priesthood with the Bobo Shanti Order, Ethiopia Africa Black International Congress, and I built a church on the Big Island. Endeavored into it. I immersed myself in it, and when I was doing that church work, I was doing weekly teleconferencing with the church elders on Bobo Hill up in Bow Bay, Jamaica, every week. And it's not just them. We had the priests from New York calling in, from Miami calling in. So I was connected, and all of these guys, most of these folks were Jamaicans or had those roots. So I'm over there, Hawaiian boy, and I can understand the patois.
Yeah.
So I just learned it like anyone would learn any other language, because it really is another language. There's so much slang. It's like way more than Hawaii pidgin. To me, like Jamaican patois is like, and just like in Hawaii, our pidgin is different from what side of the island you come from. Theirs is different too, from what province, what parish, what you're coming from, the country or you're the city. Like, people talk different. So I got to learn a lot that way culturally too. I'm hearing about the old stories and the old the happenings of how the Rastafari movement became, the persecutions they were underneath the government, the massacres they've been through, all of it. I've been so blessed to have been cultured in it, from I don't know if you're familiar with artists like Sizzla Kalonji, Capleton. They all claim to be Bobo Shanti. They claim to be of the EABIC. So that's the church I was a part of. So the founder of this church, he founded this church in 1964, King Emmanuel Charles Edwards. He had passed in the 90s. He passed away in the 90s. But his widow, I was very, very blessed that she was the one who took me under her wing, and she cultured me. And so I was hearing it from, his wife, hearing the stories of how this happened and what was allowed, what wasn't allowed on the compound. And I got the word from the mouth. So for me, I've always had that in me. If I'm going to go and learn something, I'm going to go to the source. And I've been blessed that the doors were open for me to go there. Because there are a lot of places on this planet where gatekeeping is real, that you shall not pass, you shall not enter. You don't have the right skin color. You don't have for a lot of folks, they wouldn't be able to pass the gates I was able to pass. And I'm just very blessed and very humbled that I was allowed in. And I got to learn what I needed to learn.
It definitely comes from that approach, like I have a friend, Jimmy Yoon. He's like my best friend. We were in the military together. And he had that same mindset when it came to like Orisha and West African spirituality and understanding. He was the same. He was like, no, I find value in this culture. So now I'm just going to give myself to him. Now, if you ask him about it, he's like, this is my worldview. This is the way I see the world and my heritage way around. Because he's like, I've been born now into this culture. My whole life is surrounded by this ideology. I love how you use, I think, really appropriate wording, right? Like you were accultured by these people and they did the same thing that we do to children. You teach them the language, you have
Yes.
to be there, you have to be in that environment, you have to like, you know, like you said, from the mouth, you have to be fed and you have to humble yourself to do that. And you have to accept a new cultural foundation and really soak it up and utilize it as you're thinking and as you're processing. And you mentioned like not appropriating culture. And the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because being accultured is the exact way that you don't appropriate culture, right? The experience that you said was like, I came in, this is what I did. I gave myself to this culture and I allowed it to be given to me from the mouth. That's the way that we don't appropriate, is like through that humble expression and bowing that you did. So yeah, you know, that was a really wonderfully placed thing about when we're engaging in cultures. We don't want to be educated. We want to be accultured. You know, we really want to be harnessed and raised. And, you know, for that term again, malamad, right? Really nurtured, cared
Yes.
for, and worked, you know, into that culture. So I appreciate that wording too, you know, and distincting and giving us a way to look at not appropriating culture, but actually becoming a part of that culture and becoming a representative of it. I think that was really well put, bro.
It's fluid for I because I'm mixed ethnicities. I'm Hawaiian, Portuguese, Chinese, Filipino, uh, English. And I have to learn a bit about each one, and where I come from in that respect, but also where I come from and where I grew up in Kali Valley. It was a lot of different races, and I ate at their homes. I slept over, we're all great friends, so it's very fluid for me. I think for some people it misses because maybe they stay isolated in their little communities of just one demographic or whatever. But I didn't come up that way. I'm very comfortable in that. And for me, the Rastafari movement, it's the same energy, the same vibe, the same fire as that I felt in the Hawaiian sovereignty movement, the Hawaiian movement, in the Hawaiian Renaissance. It's we were not we're not black people taken out of Africa, but we are black people who had our land taken from us.
Hey, true.
A lot of people might not align with me with saying black, but no, like when the foreigners came here, they called us the N-word,
Yeah. Yeah.
We are, to them, we are black, you know? So I wasn't confused about that. I look at the black man as that's my brother. That's someone who understands. And we weren't in the same struggle, but we are both people looking for liberation, you
Yeah.
know? We don't need to get ships to go back to where we come from. Like Rasta is we're gonna get our ships. It's all like Marcus Garvey's teaching. We're gonna get 7, 9, 13 miles of Black Star Liner. We're gonna go back home. No, for us is we have to get our home back. Our land was stolen. So we have that struggle. We have a struggle with learning who we are again. And will we ever? The Hawaiian that we will learn to be is not the Hawaiian that was back then. That
Hey.
it's gone. It's gone, So we are a hybrid, we're a hybrid people, but it's a movement. So that's what I saw. I saw this connection. I mean, if you go to Jamaica, I don't know if you've ever been, but when I went to Jamaica, it looked just like Hawaii.
Yeah.
The same plants, the same trees, there's tea leaf, there's breadfruit was all over. Even a lot of Jamaicans don't even know how the breadfruit got there. The breadfruit came from the Pacific. The Tahitians, the Samoans, the Tongans, the Hawaiians, we all were eating breadfruit from a long time. And it was all these different ships. It was the Vancouver that came out, and was one of the guys with Cook. They were all looking for breadfruit to bring back to the West Indies because they didn't want the slaves to be spending too much time growing food for themselves outside of the productivity of what kind of crops they were trying to put out and make money off of. So the breadfruit,
bro.
breadfruit was looked at as this tree, this abundance tree that just was giving bread, basically, right? So, yeah, man, we fed each other for a long time. We brought, I guess, I couldn't say we brought it there. It was taken from us and brought there, but it kept our brothers and sisters there alive through that brutality, and in turn they gave us this beautiful reggae music that came back on our way, and now we're exchanging it back and forth. I was so blessed to work with Peter Morgan, Morgan Heritage, Junior Reed, Perfect Gideon, and these are like top tier reggae artists from Jamaica. And when I worked with them, they all said the same thing. What part of Jamaica you from? What part of Jamaica the man from? They all thought I was from there, And that's what I mean. I'm not confused about my heritage. I know who I am. But if I'm going to endeavor in something that didn't come from my homeland, you best believe I'm going to do my best to keep it authentic, to the highest
Yeah,
ability.
that's an interesting conversation that I'm gonna have with myself and others. Is that where are the lines between heritage and culture and identity? Like you're talking about like this heritage that you have, but then also this acculturation that you received and how it shaped you. Yeah, that's such a great topic. I think, especially in my community, like the Black American African community, that's something that we should really dive into. Like, what part of it is our heritage? What part of it's our culture? And what parts of that can we put into our identity that really empower us? That's really amazing. Yeah, that's phenomenal, bro.
And that's really what my music is. Like, I'm talking about Hawaiian stuff. I'm talking about Hawaiian topics, some of it, and some is like global, but
Yeah.
a lot of it is Hawaiian topics, but I'm speaking in patois, and I'm doing it on some hard reggae. The reggae is the vehicle, and that's what they've all said. Elders within reggae music, they always say reggae are the vehicle for the message of Rastafari. The same thing, Rastafari lives within I. There's no separation of His Majesty from me. Like I am a Rasta. No one can tell me you're not a Rasta, man.
Yeah.
What? I used to carry the locks. The locks is in my heart. Like no one knows the reason why I don't carry the locks anymore, except my close brethren. And it's a deep personal thing. The locks. Carrying the locks and the beard. It comes from the Bible, the book of Numbers, chapter 6, verse 5. All the days of my life I'm consecrated unto Yahweh. I shall let no razor come upon my head, and let my locks in the corners of my beard grow freely. So I mean, like, until the day of your vow unto Yahweh, if your vow unto God is done, you're gonna let your hair grow long. And under that vow, you cannot do certain things. Like you cannot you can't touch a dead body. Even you can't go to a funeral, even if it's for your mother. It really means you belong to God. You're married to God, and the locks is like your veil, the veil like a bride would wear at her wedding day. So for me, I held that for a long time until my uncle had passed, and my uncle raised me as like his son. And when he passed in my grandparents' house, and I was there, and he was face down on the ground. I didn't know what to do because I thought he was dead. I didn't touch him because of my vow. I was that serious. You make a vow with God, you better take it serious. So I didn't touch him. But everything in me was like, touch him, flip him over, do the CPR, do something. I called 911. I called my mom, and, the ambulance came. And later on, years later, my mom tells me that, no, he was still alive. He died at the hospital. So that's something I carry. And because of that, I don't lie. I carry that in my heart because I made that decision for God. I chose God that day. So because of that, I don't lock anymore. I feel like I fulfilled that vow. You see what I mean? I
Yeah.
fulfilled the vow. The vow was fulfilled.
Yeah.
That was my trial, and I guess I passed that. But there was times after I tried to grow again, but I just didn't feel right. That's what I mean. Reflection, constant reflection must come above dogma, must come above all of these ritual and whatnot. You gotta be right with you. If you're not right with you, it's no sense do it. It's empty. No more mana. There's no blood. There's no essence. So you gotta reflect and, put your eggs in the right basket, I should say.
Well, brother, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I feel like I learned a lot. And one thing you make me think about is I've spent a lot of time studying the Wailers and Bob Marley, Peter Tosh back in the day. And if there's one thing that I know about them is that they truly believed that that Rasta and reggae music was going to change the world. And, when I think about Bob specifically going on these world tours, and I think he came to Hawaii, to Waikiki Shell at the end of 1979. But to me, the reason he did that was to go and plant the seeds for people like you that would then sing to me, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it's all about. And I said we're going to see Steven tomorrow night. I heard an interview with him once, and they were asking him about, all these non-Jamaicans singing reggae music and talking about Rasta and stuff like that. And his answer was simple. He said, hey, what am I to say? If they were supposed to be doing something else, they'd be doing something else. Obviously, it called to them, and so that's what they're doing. And I appreciated that, you know what I mean? And I just appreciate how much
Bob said it.
you
The
live your
music
life
will get bigger and bigger.
put
and
out the
bigger
lyrics and the
find
music
its
with
own people as it
authenticity.
gets
And
bigger.
I feel like
I know.
I owe
Bob
you
did that.
a whole load of gratitude
exactly as he
for
said it.
adhering to that.
Everywhere
and
he
much
went,
respect to you, my
something
friend.
popped up. Our Rasta headquarters, our branch of
I'm gonna add to
Rasta.
that and say, much respect. I've learned so much about you and your character. It makes me want to go and listen to all of your music that I can find, because I know the message that's gonna come, and I know the character behind the words. Like, even if I didn't understand it, me knowing the integrity that you walk with through this conversation, man, we were talking to a lady about sound healing. Let me just listen to the voice of somebody that's got some integrity in their life. That's better than half of the music. So I appreciate getting to know you in this conversation, and the vulnerability, bro, that you shared in the conversations today, and the things that we talked about was really powerful, really empowering. And it seems like Ace and our conversation has just like been trickling one into another. Like, so many things you said today were on some other podcasts that we had today. We were like, man, how much of enlightenment, like in an alignment today has been. So, man, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to get to know you a little bit. Next time in Hawaii, bro, I can't wait. I hope we can sit down and
Let's
talk
link
and
up.
reason together. Yeah, man. Appreciate you. Thank you for sharing so much today, man. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Same way, brothers. I do give thanks, for this time. I give thanks for the reach, the power link. Thank you for this opportunity to speak my mind and make connection with brothers across the planet. And yes, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your conference.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, before we let you go, you got a message from, I think, your Auntie Patty. She says, you are a pure soul, honey. So proud of the man that you are and the message you convey to your ohana and the universe.
Yeah.
You've made Auntie so proud. Aloha, I love you. Malama pono.
Oh,
That's
love you,
the
Auntie
best.
Patty.
Yeah, but again, much respect to you, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to talk with us, and I hope this message gets out there and resonates. And the most thing is that I want to say thank you for is the music, and having my kids singing your music instead of some other bullshit, that's negative out there. We owe you a lot for things like that.
Yeah.
So
No, you give me a reason, and I'm glad that that the youth are listening, because that's gonna keep me young. That's gonna, and then I know that there's younger generations still listening, then I gotta make sure I got something for them. So I'm gonna make something just for them. Thank you, brother. Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you, bro.
All right, bro. Peace to you. Have a great day.
Yes,
Peace,
aloha.
Bro. Aloha.
You've been listening to the Revolutionary Social Work Podcast, and we just want to say thank you for your continued support. You can catch us on YouTube, Apple Music, and Spotify. Remember to like and subscribe, and don't forget to share our content with the world. But most of all, never forget to keep being revolutionary. Peace.